Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter, Shane, and David. Say what's up, dudes.
Yo, what's up, dudes?
What's up, dudes?
We're back with our final episode of our Commander Grades videos. This is the Multicolored Legendary Creatures from Innistrad, Crimson Vow, Part 2. So let's go ahead and just get right back into it, starting with Odric, Blood Cursed. Odric Blood Cursed is 1, a red and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature, Vampire Soldier. He states when he enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance found among creatures you control. Count each ability only once. David, let's start with you and tell us why, because you weren't here for the spoiler video of this card. Tell us why you love this card so much, because I hate it.
Okay, for standard, I legitimately love this card for a very different reason than what I'm going to be talking about for the purposes of this video. I love this card because it's a 3-mana 3/3 for standard with upside. So, in all honesty, I don't think that this is really that big of a deal that this card is not super pushed. And I understand that the internet absolutely hated this card and people reacted super, super negatively to this. But as far as I'm concerned, this is an Odric card that does Odric things, and it's a on stat like for its mana value creature. So that's why I didn't hate this thing for standard. For EDH, I feel like this is a very different story, though.
Okay, explain.
So EDH opens up a lot of other cards we can play with. Obviously, the card pool here is significantly larger. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play Devil's Advocate for a little bit. So for 3 mana on this card, the thing that I kind of want to play Devil's Advocate with for this is that you get an enter the battlefield effect that has the potential to make X number of blood tokens. So say, for example, you're only making something like 3 blood tokens with this. You're playing in red and white. You're playing in probably the best color combination in the entire game that cares about flickering or being able to blink creatures. Red also offers a ton of different options for you to be able to create tokens that are a copy of a creature. So you can be able to create additional copies of Odric. Basically, what I'm going to be trying to do here is to create a large number of those blood tokens. And then given that this is EDH, you have access to a significantly deeper card pool that you're able to maybe build an artifact deck around to rapidly be able to mill through your deck or to be able to dig through your deck with those blood tokens. Or just to fill your graveyard with relevant artifacts. I can see this as like a commander that you maybe want for like a KCI style deck, where maybe instead of those blood tokens just kind of like tapping to discard a card and draw a card, now you're tapping and sacking each one of those to add 2 mana to your mana pool. And then using this along with something like Eldrazi Displacer to just kind of like continuously flicker this thing, making a massive amount of those blood tokens and potentially even winning the game off of the back of something like Hellkite Tyrant. I really don't think that that's going to be all too difficult to do with a card like this. So I think that the blood tokens in EDH, number one, I think that they're better than what they probably would appear to be in standard. And 2, this is a commander where I can very easily see you creating 10 or more of them in a single turn. So I think there's a lot of things that you could do with it here.
I mean, you could definitely flicker it with teleportation circle, stuff like that. Sure. And you're comboing with Hellkite Tyrant specifically?
I mean, that's just kind of being one of the outlets. One of the things that I mentioned here is doing something like some of the KCI loops where you're making 2 mana for each one of the blood tokens that you end up creating. So even if you only create 3 of them, that's 6 extra mana. And if you do happen to have something like the Eldrazi Displacer that I mentioned earlier, then in that case, I mean, it's not really that you're going infinite, but you're kind of pseudo going infinite with this creature. Or at least going high enough where you're generating a massive amount of value. Now, I will admit that obviously, yes, you do need to have other creatures in play, but white is a color that has a ton of creatures with relevant abilities that Odric cares about. So I actually don't think this commander is bad. I think it probably reads really poorly, and I think a lot of your opponents are probably not going to pay too much attention to you because of the way that this card is structured. So if anything, You might be able to pull off some combos with this just kind of out of the blue with your opponents not really having to care much or not really like kind of fully understanding the way that your deck operates.
You got a lot to say about this card today.
I think this card is actually quite a bit better than what it looks like.
I still don't, I'm not a fan of it, man. I don't know. And it's just an ETB that you have to specifically build around to get this to enter. I'm not a fan of that. I know there's flicker effects. I just named one with teleportation circle. I don't know, man. Yes. I don't know. I'm still not a fan of it. Shane, what do you think?
I completely zoned out when he was talking. It was so boring. I'm like, this card sucks.
I mean,
Yeah, so many things to say that I didn't care about. I'm sorry.
I look at it like how powerful of a card is something like Dockside Extortionist in EDH?
I understand that. And if
It's
I
kinda
play
strong.
Dockside against Odric, that's cool.
But here is my thought. In some builds, depending on how, of course, on how you put this thing together, this is kind of like a Dockside Extortionist in your command zone.
What? We're not making treasures unless you have.
No, we're not. But I mean, I'm talking about being able to sacrifice those treasures with specifically, as what I've already mentioned beforehand, something like KCI, where now you're using these as actual mana instead of you just being able to tap to discard or even draw a card on that. And then past that, I mean, building this as an artifact build, there are tons of ways in Boros for you to be able to recur all of the artifacts from your graveyard. So you can pull off from massive recursion with this.
Yeah, but I don't know. You're the one that always says there's another card that can do it better. There are many cards that can do this better.
I don't know because I feel like this plays in an avenue of Boros for artifacts specifically that doesn't necessarily or isn't necessarily like really fully flushed out. Now I'm playing devil's advocate here because I understand it. Worst case scenario, this is 3 mana for a 3/3, which is not acceptable. I'm just trying to look at it like the ceiling on this card I think is actually much, much higher than what most people give it credit for.
I'm still not sold. You could talk all you want. I'm still not a fan of it. So if you like it so much, David, what is the grade you're giving it?
I'm gonna give this thing a C. It's honestly borderline a D. I know that I've just talked this thing
I
up
love
a
it so
ton,
much.
and I'm just simply trying to do this for discussion's sake. I think that this is a commander that probably can sneak a win or two, but I think it's also a commander that like is gonna fly under the radar, and once your opponents realize what you're doing with this deck, are probably not going to let it happen a second or a third time. So I'm gonna put it like I'm gonna give this thing. You know what? I'm gonna give it a C. I recognize that at its base, it's a bad card, but I think that there's still things that you can do with it to have some fun with it and to make this thing powerful.
Shane?
I'm giving it a D. I know I didn't really say much about the card, but like, I don't feel strongly about it one way or another. I knew David had
I'm,
strong feelings, so I just let him talk.
I'm in that
Like, it's
same
just the
boat with
biggest.
you.
It's the biggest.
I'm also giving this a D. This card, I hate it. I'm sorry, David. I don't care what you say. So that total average is a D. You lose this time, David. All right, let's move on to another card. This card is called Old Rutstein. Old Rutstein is 1, a black and a green for a 1/4 legendary creature human peasant. It states, when Old Rutstein enters the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land card is milled that way, create a treasure. If a creature card is milled this way, create a 1/1 green insect. If a non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. Shane, what do you think?
Dude, if only that said just like do something other than a blood token. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm so over blood tokens already, dude. They're barely even out.
You're over the brand new mechanic.
Yeah, I know. Which is kind of dumb. I think this would be kind of a cool card in like like a dredge style thing. You want to like put a bunch of shit in your graveyard, reanimate some cool shit. But it like doesn't. I don't know. I feel like it does something, but it really doesn't. It just feels weird. Because I mean, you do get to do like if it's a land, you get to get a territory. Like so, it does have upside for things, and then you can reanimate the fatty so that you wanted to get in your graveyard. like there's an archetype there, but then Devil's Advocate, aren't there other cards that do it better? I don't know enough to say one way or another, but I mean, this seems like a fun, like, don't you have a kind of a, you have a deck that kind of does like this, don't you? Kind of cares about things in your graveyard and you reanimate things over and over. It's
That's a very, very different card.
100%, but I'm just saying, like, Squigari cares about your graveyard. I'm sure you can make a deck out of it.
Yeah, I think you could too. You put Doubling Season on the field with this. You're making two tokens per card.
Ew.
Fancy.
Fancy.
I think it's cool. I think you could build around it, definitely. I don't know how powerful you can make this. Maybe David will tell us. David, how powerful can you make this card?
Not. This card sucks.
No, I think it's cool. Like Shane said, definitely you're trying to reanimate stuff. Just milling yourself. So, mill yourself with upside. Seems pretty cool.
Yeah, but like it is mill 1. Mill
And
A card. Like that's my favorite part about this entire card, honestly, is just like the mill A card. Aside from that, the effect that you're going to get that follows that is random. Unless you're heavily stacking your library, in which case, I mean, you're playing some pretty hefty dollar cards. Like you're playing some Sylvan Libraries or some Sensei's Divining Tops or something where you're actually capable of like keeping tabs on what the top of your library is. And the payoff for that is you get a treasure or a 1/1 or a blood
Hell
token.
yeah, baby.
I mean, the treasure there, honestly, is probably the one that I care about the most. No, you know what? I take it back. This being in green black, probably going to be in some kind of like what you mentioned, like a reanimator, some kind of deck in which I actually care about the cards in my graveyard. So maybe I care about the blood token. Maybe the treasure token is some additional cool stuff that I can take advantage of there too, because treasure tokens just innately are very powerful. And then the 1/1 green insect token is like that is just going to make me feel like shit.
That's true.
yeah, I think the insect is the only worst, the worst part of that card, definitely. Unless you can pump tokens with certain cards, which
And
is
like
doable.
in the reanimator build that you mentioned too, like you want to be putting those creatures into the graveyard too, which means the one of those 3 tokens that you're most likely or like most heavily incentivized to make would be the 1/1 green insect.
Yeah, the land card I think is the coolest, like you were saying, because it's like, oh shit, I accidentally milled a land, but it's okay because I basically have one with a token this turn. I know it goes away, but still, man. So, what's your grade, Shane?
I'm giving this a D.
I'm gonna give it a C. I think I like it better than the last card we talked about, even though David was like, we can break this card. I don't know. I like it more.
Can't break
I'm
these
stand
cuffs.
by it. I think that Odric still has higher upside. I'm gonna put this thing at a D.
All right, you put it at a D all you want. Because the average for this card is the same as the last. That is a D. Let's move on to the Bride. This is Olivia, Crimson Bride. She costs 4, a black and a red for a 3/4 legendary creature vampire noble. She's got flying and haste. Also states whenever she attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire. Exile this creature. Shane, this reminds you of a card.
Reminds me of a couple different cards, but yeah, this is Talia, my baby. This card's
Somewhat, yeah.
pretty dope. I mean, okay, it's not Kali obviously because I want to send my big fatties from my hand tapped and attacking. But it kind of similar. Great targets for reanimation. This deck could be tons of fun, like super tons of fun. Just dump shit in your graveyard, have them come back attacking, and you get to keep them. It's not on a turn as long as you have a legendary vampire, which she is. So I mean, play some other legendary vampires even to be chilling, do big chilling.
I think
I
the
like this
only
a lot.
downside is that, say, you're getting these cards back from the graveyard, and then an opponent just kills her. Now those cards are exiled, and you can't do it again.
Yeah, then you're just sad.
You are super sad. David, what do you think? This is Rakdos, your favorite.
Rakdos is my favorite. So I like how this thing has haste, and I think that might be the saving grace on it. I typically am not a big fan of cards that have to attack in order for them to have any kind of really relevant ability. The haste on this does kind of save it though, because at least that means you're not waiting around for a turn. I know that there are some combos that you can pull off with this, where you're taking infinite combo steps. That way you can just kind of continuously pummel your opponent. Those do require that you have an open target though. I can't remember the name of the card off the top of my head at this point. It's that pirate. Help me out here. Do either one of the two of you remember the name of it? I do
You're talking
think
about
that
Port
Olivia.
Raiser.
There you go. Thank you so much. So Port Raiser, yeah. Do me a favor real quick. Read that card.
Port Raiser says, whenever Port Raiser deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase. Port Raiser can't attack a player if it is already attacked this turn.
Okay. So using that and then a sack outlet, you can be able to just kind of constantly reanimate and then constantly also be able to get in for an additional attack step. So, I mean, it's cool, but your opponent, like, you have to be able to just kind of like hit your opponent and deal combat damage, which if they have any creature that's capable of blocking, either dealing with the Port Raiser or with Olivia, you're going to be in for a bad day and you're just simply not going to be able to kill them.
True. It's a cool card though.
I am also complaining about like the ceiling of this being like you win on the spot. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this card is bad by any means. 6 mana for a commander is a bit on the steep side. So keep in mind, like there's only going to be so many times in which you're capable of actually casting this thing. But all in all, I mean, I still think that she's a pretty solid card.
You know, I thought about this. How much does Swiftfoot boots cost? 2 or 1?
Why would you need it with this commander?
No, shut the fuck. Follow me. Keep going. 2 or
Bad.
1?
2.
There you go, dude. Kali is 4 mana. Put Swiftfoot boots on it. That's 6 mana. Same exact card, but now it has haste.
Very different cards.
Shut the fuck up. It's the same thing.
Also, why not just play Lightning Greaves, which is almost strictly better in that situation?
Whatever, dude. I'm just hypothetically saying could work.
Yeah, I guess it could work. I don't know. I like this card a lot. I think it's cool. But for 6 is a lot for a commander. That's the only downside I see. And because of that 6, let's move on to the grades. I'm giving this a C. If it was 1 mana cheaper, maybe I'd give it a B. But 6 is a lot. And when this dies, that commander tax is going to get pricey.
Oh, it's gonna be super pricey, dude. I know firsthand from Kalia, she dies like 3 times, and you're like, all right, I'm done. So I can only imagine.
That is also a deck though that like whenever she's died 3 times, you're just now hard casting whatever you have in your hand. This is a deck that you actually have to be able to reanimate those targets for, so you don't have really the same access to just be able to say, okay, I'm done.
That's true. Well, I'll give it a B. I like this card.
David?
I'm gonna give this a B as well. I think that this is a really solid commander. I feel like because of the fact that she is still, I'm gonna say somewhat fragile, and the fact that she is 6 mana, I don't think that this is an A. I don't think this is like you need to be able to deal with this commander and kill it on the spot kind of card. I think that this is still very much so a commander that can win games pretty consistently though.
Well, if that's the case, then our average today with this card is a B.
Hooray.
Hooray. Let's move on to another one. This is Runo Stromkirk. Runo Stromkirk is 1, a blue and a black for a 1/4 legendary creature vampire cleric. It's got flying. It states, whenever Runo Stromkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Also, at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You will reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed this way, transform Runo Stromkirk. Transforms into Krothuss, Lord of the Deep, which is a legendary creature Kraken Horror. That's a 3/5 with flying. That states when it attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead. Whew! What do we think of Runo Stromkirk, David?
I kind of want Shane to start this one off because I feel like this is a very Shane card.
All right.
Why? Because it's amazing.
Because you love octopuses.
I love octopuses, dude. Oh, this is a really cool card. I feel like it's. I don't know. I do like it, but I don't know if it's completely what I want to be doing. I think it's cool because you do get another a tapped and attacking creature, right? But you have to have something already attacking. So it's like you're kind of setting up this engine. So I feel like it's kind of fragile. That'd be my only thing that I don't like about it. Other than that, I think it's would be a really fun commander. I think it's kind of cool to get around. Oh, no, sorry, not get around. I thought I had disturbed for a minute. I was tripping out. So wait, how do you have to get this thing to flip? 6 or
At the beginning of
greater?
your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed this way, then you transform it.
Got it. So you're definitely stacking your deck, so that's cool. No, I don't know. I feel like this is a really cool card. I would build it. I would play it.
What
Tell
do you
me
think,
why
David?
I'm wrong, David.
So something that I think is really cool about this card is the fact that on the flip side of it is a Kraken with flying, which I feel like is not something
That
that
is
you see.
interesting, yeah. I think about that.
I feel like that's really weird too. So the first side of it, I can totally see the flying aspect. The second side of it, though, the back side, flying just seems really, 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 really weird on a Kraken to me. So surprise factor there. I'm totally going to attack into this thing and forget that it has flying 99% of the time.
Okay.
That's true.
I really don't like like how fragile this card is. So the front half of it, I get that you're able to kind of recurse something and that you're able to maybe get like that big fatty back and put it back onto the top of your library. However, this is a commander that has to sit around for a full turn cycle in order for you to really be able to do anything with it. You'll be able to flip it once you've been able to stack your library. So even at that, I mean, it's going to require some kind of additional setup in there. Past that point, I still don't even think that the backside is all that great. I mean, yeah, you can get an additional like token, but that still requires additional setup past that point. I mean, I see that there's a way that you can build this deck as kind of like this like kind of pseudo grindy mid-range kind of thing. But the front half of it and the backside of it don't really super synergize with me. So it feels like you're almost kind of like having to set this deck up twice.
That's
I
kind of
know that
weird.
I know that the backside, like, yeah, the backside has a pretty decent payoff to me, but this is a commander that realistically, like, how many times are you going to be able to make this thing relevant in a game?
Depends on how many big creatures you're running. Because if you have a big creature, like the very next turn, turn 4, say you put this on turn 3, you're flipping it already.
Oh, I totally get that, but like, if you play this on turn 3 and your opponent just kills it on their next turn, their follow-up turn, this really didn't do anything for you. I don't think this is the commander that you're actually playing on turn 3 very often because you have to be able to have those cards in your graveyard. I think this is a commander that kind of like it says 3, but it secretly says like turn 5.
I think you could get that out really quick. Say you play Entomb turn 1, throw a giant creature in the graveyard. When this enters, you put that giant creature on top. Next turn, you flip it. I think it'd be cool.
You're assuming that you have a very specific card in your opening hand, so you are mulliganing
Hey, man.
aggressively for this.
We were just talking about specifics all card when we were talking about Odric, okay? I could dream too.
You know what? You are absolutely right.
Thank you.
I do think that the difference here being, though, is that Odric can be put into an artifact heavy build in which there are 0 mana artifacts that are very good in EDH. There are 1 mana artifacts that are very good in EDH. There is 1 Entomb.
I mean, there's also other cards that you can just throw shit into your graveyard.
There
see a
are,
problem.
which cost a minimum of 2 to 3 mana that are going to be your closest competitors.
Okay, which is still less mana than this card. So
You got
boom.
2 of them. You got what? It's Entomb and Unmarked Grave are the ones that come in at 1 and 2 mana, right? And then Buried Alive comes in at 3.
Does it? Either way, I think this card's cool. Did you know that there are 89 cards that either have Kraken, Leviathan, Serpent,
That's it.
or Octopus? Yeah.
Hmm.
89. It's kind of a lot.
True. What if you copy a thing in the ice, dude? That'd be sick.
Wow. That would be pretty sick.
Or the
You're
land,
creating
that land. My land commander, that's a Kraken, right?
That's also a blue-green card, so you're probably not copying
You're
that.
probably, you know what? You're right.
Yeah,
I
specifically
don't
those
know,
colors.
dude.
And
This
blue and
card's a
black.
C.
All right, moving on to grades. I'm also giving it a C. David?
Not that my deviation from the norm here is going to matter much, but because of just kind of how much setup is required into this thing, I'm going to give this thing a D. I think I would
Yeah,
like it more if both the front and the back were just different cards.
Yeah, I saw you change your grade. You had it higher.
I did. You talked me out of it.
You're
Yourself out
welcome.
of it.
Well, that average is a C for Runo Stromkirk, the vampire that turns into a kraken. Moving on. We got Torens, Fist of the Angels. Torens is 1, a green and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature human cleric. It's got training. In case you don't remember what training is whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. So there we go. We got a human that makes humans that can pump themselves, because this guy's always going to be
Training.
higher training. Right.
He's a trainer, dude.
He trains with
Playing
the
Pokemon,
training.
dude.
He's got them gym badges.
Playing
All
Pokemon.
I want is the gym badges, dude.
I kind of like this card. I mean, is it the best human ever? Absolutely not. But I don't know. It seems like a card that you could build around and really take advantage. Like if you start putting counters on other things, you can really make this into a counter themed deck. Similar to the Coven counters precon deck we upgraded. I think this would fit very nicely in that. Or maybe take the helm if you really wanted to. It kind of does the same thing of that exact deck. What do you think, David?
So whenever I initially saw this card, I was kind of getting flashbacks of like Hero Precinct 1, and I was thinking, okay, well, that was actually like a really dope card. Given that card is not legendary, so that it is not going to be something that you're going to be playing with as your commander. But I thought, like, okay, this is really cool. I'm getting flashbacks of that, of Monastery Mentor, these kinds of cards that they sit around, they just create these massive, massive value engines where you're pumping out tokens, you're overwhelming the board. These tokens maybe are starting to grow or get bigger. And my initial thought is, this card is really cool. Now, every time I've had this card actually cast against me, it's almost ignorable. Like, I don't know. This is a card to me that it reads as if it's really powerful, but in practice, it's just not. And I feel like the creatures that it ends up making, it typically maybe makes 1 or 2 1/1s a turn. And if you do manage to swing with this thing, congratulations. You made that 1/1 a 2/2.
Yeah, but if you're building around it, can't you just build a billion of them? Like
You sure
creature spell,
can.
creature spell.
Like
It's
doubling season or other double spells. Say you throw in Vorinclex. Vorinclex also creates double.
Vorny.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that there are ways for you to be able to abuse those +1/+1 counters. It's just that like I feel like this is another commander in which like you have to be able to build that board around it, and like in a vacuum it sounds really cool, but in reality you have 3 opponents that are also playing Magic that they're using removal spells against you. They're going to be countering your shit. You're realistically not playing a doubling season or a Vorniclex and just like calling it a day.
Well, realistically, David, I think the reason you don't like this is because it has to win with damage, and you hate that.
No, it's not that I hate that. I just feel like this is a commander that has to deal with damage, but does so poorly. I mean, so you go ahead and you play this, and for 3 mana you spend 3 mana on a 2/2, and then the next turn, say for example you play a creature, you get a 1/1 in play, and even past that, let's say you already had a 1/1 in play. Are you really going to be able to attack in with a 2/2 after your opponents have had their turn 3s? Probably
Maybe.
not. Like this creature, I feel like in most situations is already too small to trigger its own ability.
Yeah, I don't like it. You talked me out of it, dude. It's a C.
Like-
Moving on very quickly. I guess we're going
I
to
mean,
grades.
yeah. You just want to dwell on things. We're just going around in circles like we always do.
Okay, so you're giving it a C.
Yeah.
I'm also giving it a C.
Same.
David, I love you.
David, you're giving it a C?
I love you too. And yes, I am.
You love me too?
All right. Well, CCC, that average. Torens is a C. Moving on. We've got Toxrill the Corrosive. Toxrill the Corrosive is 5 and 2 black for a 7/7 legendary creature slug horror. It states at the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter and it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. You can also pay a blue and a black to sacrifice a slug and draw a card. This card is amazing, but
What?
7 mana.
Yeah. It seems like a really, really cool card, but it's so expensive.
7
But it's so
mana.
cool.
It is so cool. I built a deck with Scoot Swarm, and I played against this card in Standard. And I tell you what, that matchup did not go my way because he killed so many insects and made so many slugs. He flipped the board instantly, and I lost.
You mean a bunch of 1/1s died to a slug, dude?
Dude, he made all my 1/1s die, and then he made 1/1 slugs. I was like, okay.
Lit. That's lit.
But yeah, for 7 mana, this is really tough.
That's
Really
something
tough.
I don't think also like, dude. In EDH, how often are you having 1/1s, dude? Like you're gonna have to be giving it so many -1/-1s, right?
There are plenty of 1/1s in EDH.
True. I mean,
Or
you're not
things
okay.
that end with 1. You got Thalia, that's a 2/1. That's a 1. You got
mean-
Esper Sentinel's a 1/1. That's really popular.
You're reaching.
Guys, let's
not
be honest here.
reaching.
It says the beginning of each end step. So a turn cycle is 4.
That's
Yeah.
true. If you're playing with 4, yes.
I mean, how how many creatures do you typically play with that are bigger than 4/4s that are not just going to immediately get swallowed up by this thing after that?
You make a great point. I love this card so much. But 7 mana is so expensive, man.
Yeah.
I agree, dude. This thing is a powerhouse, but 7 mana I feel like puts this into like it's in the void. It's in the place where you just don't want to go.
Yeah.
And like even its like ability to sack a slug to draw a card is so good. That's so good. It's just and for
I guess you
that
can black ramp. I don't know.
black, I mean, there's blue in there too. It's blue ramp.
Say blue
That-
ramp. Black has significantly better ramp options than that. I mean, you dark ritual and you cabal ritual and you use all those other cards in there.
You just keep hoping for the best, right?
Hell yes, dude. I think that there are ways to cheat this thing up before turn 7, and this reminds me a lot of Elish Norn with additional upside of potential card draw here. It's still 7 mana.
So let's move on to the grades. We just keep saying 7 mana at this point. So I'm just gonna say, because it's 7 mana, I have to give it a C. It's like, I wish this was less mana. I'd give it such a higher grade. But because it's 7, it's a C for me.
Bro, there's way too many words on this card for it not to be 7 mana.
I know. Wizards needs to break it.
And it's a 7/7. Okay, what if it's like a 5/5?
I would still be amazing.
Oh, I'm saying 5/5 for like 5.
That would be. I would 100% pump my grade up.
I think that would throw
Yeah.
it into the very high B range for me.
Yeah, I want to give this a B. I'm still gonna do it. You'll find a way to get the mana, bro. Okay, we'll find a way. I'll take out some loans.
David, what do we got?
All right. Shane has a point. You can totally ramp this thing up, and then it's going to eat 1 source of plowshares, and then it costs 9, and then like you're just like, this is not a card anymore. So at that point, like, I don't know. This thing is a C. I really want to love this card, but if you are not playing in a format in a meta that is going to allow you to be able to cast a 7 mana spell or a 9 mana spell, because in the case this thing dies, that's what it is. Like.
I mean, given the blue pip, you do have an option to protect it.
Yeah. And given the black pip, I mean, you can reanimate it in the case that
That's
it
what I was
does
gonna
die.
say. I was gonna say, what if we just let this thing go to the graveyard every time?
Just a reanimator deck? That'd be wild. Yeah, so the average here is, unfortunately, we're all sad about it, but it's a C.
Yo, is there a cat in that belly right there?
Who knows, man?
It's slug. It's a see-through slug.
All right, so the final card we're talking about is Umbris Fear Manifest. Umbris Fear Manifest is 3, a blue and a black for a 1/1 legendary creature Nightmare Horror. Umbris Fear Manifest gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile. It also says whenever Umbris or another Nightmare or Horror enters the battlefield under your control, target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a land. This could get big very quickly if you're building around nightmares and horrors.
I was to say, wait, what?
Or shapeshifters.
Did you keep bringing up the shapeshifters? Like, we know they're a thing.
I'm just saying, dude. You don't always have to be horrors or nightmares.
With Hunter's Point, though, I feel like if you're playing with a tribe that is like so off the beaten path like this, like you're probably playing with a rather exceptionally large number of shapeshifters.
Yeah, this card. I honestly have nothing to say about this card because it seems so out of left field. I don't know.
So I actually looked it up. In the
me.
colors of blue and black, how many cards do you think are nightmares or horrors?
20.
Is this including shapeshifters?
Nope.
Please no.
I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'll go with probably. I'll go with like 30, but that's not a saying that all of them are playable or good.
Well, here's the thing you guys didn't think of.
What?
Eldrazi horrors are a thing. So,
Yes.
the correct answer is, believe it or not, 223 cards.
So
Okay.
you're telling me more than 20?
Just a little bit.
So all I need to do now is be able to cast this and then follow it up with my 9-mana
Yeah,
Eldrazi horror.
My Annihilator fucking net 17. Like,
There's like squid horrors. I'm looking at like zombie horrors. Looks pretty cool. I think you can do it.
If I can do all of that, then all I get is a big dumb beater.
Is it a big dumb beater? That's your favorite.
No, I hate big dumb beaters. If it's a big dumb beater with flying and trample, or flying or trample, it's cool. Because that means that damage is actually probably going to end up getting pushed through. But aside from that, this gets blocked by a 1/1. Indefinitely.
I don't get the first part of this card either.
Just give it trample. What do you mean the first part?
Like, why does it care about what's in your opponent's exile?
Because the second part states it. States whenever a nightmare horror enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until they exile a land.
Oh, I gotta read. Got it.
Yeah, gotta listen too.
Reading does help.
Those are two of my specialties.
It's a mill card that cares about its tribe.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
So what's your grade then, Shane?
C. D's nuts.
C. Okay. I'm actually giving it a B. I'm a big fan of it. And after knowing that there's 223 cards that you can make a deck out of,
Good
I
luck,
think you
dude.
can build it.
Good luck.
And it really hurts your opponents by putting them in exile. Your opponents never get those cards back.
I am not a big fan of mill to begin with.
This is a worse mill, dude. It's going to exile.
Okay, here's my thought on this though: is that like mill typically wins by getting your opponent to draw whenever they have no cards left in their library. Correct?
100's a lot.
You're dealing with 300. You have 3 opponents.
Oh, true.
That's true. I understand that.
100's a lot. 300 is insane. So like mill and EDH is a very tall ask. It's not to say that it can't be done, but like you're demanding a lot at that point. And those kinds of decks also generate a lot of hate. Many people don't like to play up against mill, so they'll unnecessarily spend their kill spells and their removal on your deck.
Bro, this could
I'll
have
tell you
one
what.
change, and I would love this card.
What was the change?
So the top part of the card has a plural opponents. So it cares about everything your opponents have in exile. The bottom is fucking only one. So like, what if it made all your opponents exile? I would be on this card's dick. Think about that.
I guess so. What if, okay. You know what also could pop up this card?
What? Tell
Tasha's
me.
Hideous Laughter. If you remember, Tasha's Hideous Laughter states each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile total mana value of 20.
In EDH, I feel like that's like 5 cards.
Yeah, and in a casual table of EDH, I don't think that's very many cards at all. And even if you are playing in a competitive table, you still probably aren't going to hit as much as what you think.
And that's one card in your deck, dude. I mean, it's a
I
good
think
card.
it's- I'll tell you what, right now, if I open this card when I open a box, I will build this deck.
Can't wait to see it, bud.
Go for it. I'm not trying to stop you. I think mill innately is very weak because you're playing on an axis that you're trying to win where no other player is. And ultimately, like the plus side of this is that you make it a big creature, but it's just a big creature that's not really doing anything.
Also, you still owe us a old Gnawbone deck, so I'll believe when I see it.
That's true. I did make that a long time ago, if any fans remember that. Yeah, but I'm still sticking with a B on this. David, what do you got?
I'm going to give this thing a D because of the fact that it doesn't really it doesn't play the same way that the opponent's decks are going to. So like combat damage focused decks, all of your opponents are probably going to be either paying life or dealing combat damage to each other. So like you're kind of self-synergizing in that regard. Nobody is going to probably be helping you to mill. And if they are milling themselves aggressively, it's probably for their own benefit, which means
You keep
I don't
saying
know.
mill. See, it's not about mill. It's about putting it in exile.
And I get that, and but here's the thing: is the reason why I keep saying mill is because it's going to win the same way. You're going to win to win whenever your opponent runs out
Oh,
of cards in their library.
see, that's an alternate win con. The win con is just to kill you with damage, because if this dies, it still comes back with the same 1/1s.
Yeah,
Those
and I
don't.
get that,
That
but
number
like
doesn't change.
this is a horrible beater because it has no ability to actually be able to push that damage through. So long as I have a 0/1 in play, you can't hurt me. This thing could be a 1,000,000, and if I have a
Get it.
0/1,
You
you're not killing me.
you act like there's no equipment or anything to get past that.
And you act as if there's no removal to just simply kill this thing.
All right, ladies.
So the average, we're still giving it a C. And with
Yep.
that is the end of our Commander Grade video. Once again, for the next set, we will see you in Kamigawa for another Commander Grade video. Until then, we will see you all in the next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We love to hear your feedback. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. That's @GuysThatMagic on both. Until the next video, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Later,
Hasta la vista,
baby.
baby.
Baby.